When I think of my allergies, a certain reaction is the first that comes to mind. A little while into the lesson, I knew something was wrong. My stomach started to hurt, but I decided to wait another 5 minutes just to make sure. But it only got worse and worse. This was definitely a reaction. What had I eaten? I only ate what was in my lunch bag. I thought really hard trying to remember everything I had eaten that day. I could not bear the pain anymore, so I got up from my desk, annoyed at what I knew was coming, and asked my teacher if I could go down to the office, making sure he was aware that I was having a reaction. I wouldn't be back in class. Walking down the long hallways lined with speckled navy carpet, I felt as if it would take forever to reach the office. With every step, my body urged me to sit down and brace itself for the attack. I felt a wave of nausea come over me and wished I was anywhere but there. All I wanted to do was curl up in a ball and pretend none of this was happening. I finally reached the office after what seemed like an eternity. Unfortunately, I knew the secretary well because of previous reactions. I explained to her that I was not feeling well as she opened her desk drawer and pulled out my Ziploc bag full of medications. I took a seat in one of the hard plastic chairs with thin cushioning in the office. I was no longer nauseous, and the janitor was most likely not happy. The secretary handed me the Benadryl and pulled up my file. For the secretary, the obvious thing to do was inject me with the EpiPen. I had never had to use it before, so I was terrified. I was already afraid of needles, and this person wasn't even a doctor. I heard her unscrewing the cap as I prepared myself for the worst. Getting ready to take the shot in my thigh, I succumbed to my fluttering eyelids and put my head back against the hard textured wall. I waited and waited and waited, then click. Wow, that was really it, I thought, because I didn't feel a thing. Then I heard a few choice words fly out of the secretary's mouth. Uh-oh, I thought. It turns out that instead of injecting me, she had the EpiPen flipped and unexpectedly stabbed herself with it. I heard her voice as the panic started to set in, as she exclaimed that she would call the EMS as my condition was growing worse. And she now had a thumb with a creeping, tingling sensation. By the time the EMS arrived, my grandma had already rushed in. My mom was right behind both of the EMS trucks. Yes, both. There was one team for me and another for the secretary. During all of the commotion, I was sitting in the same chair, lethargic, listening to the paramedics talk to my mom, while the other team was busy working on the secretary's thumb. My eyelids were fighting exhaustion, and I felt like I was melted candle wax stuck to the chair. If someone asked, I would not be able to say how many people were crowded and squeezed into the tiny office. All I knew was that there were about 10 different conversations going on, which were 10 too many for my half-present senses. Finally, the paramedics gave me the all-clear to go home. I could not wait to get in the car and let sleep do its job. I went home that day and eventually regained my strength with the help of sleep and Benadryl. We figured the only possible thing I reacted to was cross-contamination in something in my lunch. As for the secretary, I later found out that her thumb was numb for about a week before she could salvage any feeling.